Hi book friends, I'm Erin, and this is Erin Go Read. Today is my spring book haul. So these are probably most of the books that I have purchased or found at like little free book libraries in the last few months. So I don't typically keep like a stash of them to haul and then like to officially haul on the channel and then put on my shelves. So there's probably some that I missed. You might see some empty spots on my shelf here from recent book purchases that are in the stack right next to me right now. And you might also notice a different look to my bookshelves. I will soon be posting a book reorganization kind of deal. So now the books directly behind me that you can see here are unread books. The ones you can't exactly see right here, these are the books that I have read. So let's add to more books I haven't read, huh? The way this is going to go, just based on the way that my books are stacked right now, it's going to go nonfiction, sci-fi fantasy, and then like literary contemporary. Itchy nose. I have a very itchy nose, and I also have been eaten up by mosquitoes, and they're driving me crazy, and I put myself into like a half Benadryl coma the other night and basically woke up like Benadryl hungover. That wasn't fun. All right, on to the books. First up of the nonfiction books is Oliver Sacks' The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. And this is a beautiful edition. It's a UK version. It's a Picador classic. And I just love this simple design cover and that simple spine. It's a little bit hard to make out, but the lettering there is in the same blue as the cover here. So this is a series of stories about strange neurological disorders and the weird phenomena that can happen. For instance, like a man mistaking his wife for a hat. So my husband has a traumatic brain injury, a very severe traumatic brain injury, and he has basically no short-term memory. Odd things will come up from time to time. Fortunately, most days are less odd than those few standouts. But we've had situations where probably the worst one and the most troubling was I went to lay down in his bed with him, and he told me I had to get up because I was laying on his dead girlfriend. I said, well, who's your dead girlfriend? And it was me from when we were like 16. It was my maiden name, and he recognized that I was Erin, or I looked like Erin, but I was an imposter. And when he was very serious, he's telling me to call 911 because his girlfriend is dead in the bed. And it was a whole, and basically at that point, I just had to leave because like my presence being there was making the situation worse. That was a rough one. Fortunately, that things like that are very few and far between. But anyhow, I have a great interest in this book and the scenarios that are going to come up. Next up, I went to Barnes & Noble recently, and they had sometimes they'll have a paperback table, buy two get one free. So I did. So this is The Butcher's Art, and I believe Olive over at A Book Olive recently reviewed this or did a wrap-up of it. At least this is by Lindsay Fitzharris. And this looks at 18th century surgery, or 19th century. 19th century surgery and the high mortality rate. They didn't have anesthesia and what surgery looked like at that time. And then along comes Joseph Lister and basically comes up with, brings out germ theory, and it follows Lister's career as he takes germ theory into the operating theater. And at that point, this follows Joseph Lister's career as he implements germ theory in the operating theater and how that ends up changing surgery forever. Surgery and medicine. Recently, Leanne at Literary Diversions mentioned Cheryl Strayed as an author that she really enjoys and has been very helpful for her in dealing with anxiety. And I'd seen the movie, but I had never read the book, and so I picked up Wild by Cheryl Strayed. When I see the book, when I think of the movie, it makes me think of the Netflix Gilmore Girls thing that they did, and Lorelai goes on her little Appalachian Trail journey, and there's all the women that are doing the same thing, and they go into groups. So book or movie? So far I'm movie, but I want to join team book. And the last of the nonfiction is The Lost City of the Monkey God. So in 2012, the author, Douglas Preston, went to Honduras with a team of scientists to look for this lost city that's supposed to be like deep in the rainforest. And they had this amazing technology that was going to allow them to map it through the dense forest canopy and all. And they end up contracting some sort of crazy, like incurable illness. So, and this is a real story. So this sounds really cool. Also, I love the color green, and I just love nature, and that this cover just really called to me. So I'm really excited to get to this one. I mean, I'm excited about all of them. That's why I bought them. All right, now we go to sci-fi fantasy. So kind of, I was in my May TBR was BookTube made me do it. And so BookTube definitely made me purchase this book. And this is Martha Wells' All Systems Red. This is the first of the Murderbots book. So I've been hearing about this pretty much, since I started watching BookTube a little over a year ago. Rachel Colinati was the first I had ever seen talk about it, and she's a very much sci-fi fantasy, especially sci-fi reader. But then now I've seen many other booktubers who are less sci-fi readers also rave about it and really enjoy it. And there's the thing that intrigues me the most is there are robots who I think they're supposed to be like assassins or something like that, or kill people, but they don't want to, and they take on these very human characteristics of wanting to like watch soap operas, and so it just sounds really, really interesting. And it's a really nice short guy, so I might wait for like a readathon, or maybe I'll do like a book vlog day, one of those reading vlog days with my niece. This would be a fun one to maybe whip out in an afternoon. Next up, I have Flowers for Algernon. I most recently saw Cody at Cody's Book Corner read this, and she fell apart when she read it. So I know that the book starts out with a man who's Charlie. Charlie has some sort of cognitive disability. I'm not sure exactly how it starts, and then there's some sort of experiment, and there's a mouse is becoming more intelligent, and Charlie is becoming more intelligent, and then I don't know, something terrible ends up happening. It's supposed to be very intriguing, engrossing, and heartbreaking. So, yay! Next up is book 2 in the Ancestor trilogy. I read Red Sister like 2 months ago, February or March, I believe. And this is Gray Sister by Mark Lawrence. Holy Sister, the third book. I don't know if it's going to be a trilogy, so if that was the final book or if there are going to be more. But anyhow, this is book 2. In order to read book 3, I have to read book 2 first. That's how chronological order works. Killer Nuns. And another booktube darling is Akata Witch by Nnedi Okorafor. I actually can't remember a whole lot about this, but I've heard a lot of really great things about it, so I want to read it. After reading The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon, I went ahead and picked up The Bone Season by Samantha Shannon. I picked this up at Half Price Books. I got it for like $4, and this includes the prequel, The Pale Dreamer. So I believe this is supposed to be a 7-book series, and I think like the first 3 or 4 are out. I heard who did it? On someone's BookTube channel recently, they interviewed Samantha Shannon, and so she was mostly talking about The Priory of the Orange Tree, but there was mention of The Bone Season, and so it got me really intrigued for that. And also I really love this cover, and this spine is beautiful. Oh, it matches my shirt. My shirt, by the way. Fight evil, read books. That's what we're doing here. And mostly from Murphy Napier talking about this recently, and I'd heard other people talk about it as well. I have Patrick Rothfuss's The Name of the Wind, And if I remember correctly, this is epic fantasy. If I remember correctly, this is book 1, and I think there's supposed to be, I think book 2 is out, and like eventually book 3 will come out, but it's taking a long time. That's either the case for book 3 or book 4. I'm not exactly sure, but it doesn't matter until I read book 1 anyway. I would like to get into more epic fantasy. I'm still fairly new to the sci-fi fantasy game. I read Harry Potter, of course. I've read The Inheritance Cycle, Eragon, Lord of the Rings. Those are like the 3 biggest series, most epic series I've read. Which in the world of fantasy, I mean, other than Lord of the Rings, it's not like that epic. And so I think The Name of the Wind is going to be kind of a big step into that. Also, back on the shelf somewhere for the Great American Read Project, The Wheel of Time by Robert Jordan. And that's like a 14-book series, but at least got to start with book 1. So if you have any suggestions for me, other than The Name of the Wind, for example, or a way to get into epic fantasy, let me know. The thing, do you ever get stressed out about wanting to read all the books? The last week or so of May, I had finished a couple books, and I was at the point where I was like, okay, there's time to read 1 or 2 more books for the month, but I wanted to read everything, and so rather than just picking a book and reading it, I just started reading 5 things. And I get a anxiety about not being able to read all the books all at once. So chill and just enjoy the book that you're reading right now, Erin. On to literary contemporary. Almost all of these are quite new. There's a couple that are a handful of years old, but these are mostly pretty new. I have Marianne Taves, Women Talking. I've heard Russell at Ink and Paper blog, and Kendra at, I think Kendra Winchester just is the name of her channel, have raved about Marianne Taves in general, and Women Talking is her most recent book, and it has to do with a Mennonite community, and I think the silenced voices of the women, and finally being unsilenced, I believe, in them, all sorts of things that have happened to them. I've seen them in the wild, but I don't know a whole lot about who the Mennonites are, what they believe, and all that. So that'll be an interesting one to get to. I'm pretty sure this is a UK edition. Yeah, it has pounds on the back. This is Sally Rooney's first book, Conversation with Friends. And I enjoyed Normal People. I didn't like it as much as a lot of people who really raved about it. And there seems to be a theory that if you love Normal People, you won't enjoy Conversation with Friends. And if you love Conversations with Friends, Normal People is not for you. So I was kind of lukewarm on Normal People. So it'll be interesting how I feel about Conversations with Friends. So part of my problem, I think, with Normal People is I was multi-reading. And I really wasn't reading big enough chunks at a time to get into the flow of it. So I won't make that mistake with Conversations with Friends. Next up is Doll Factory by Elizabeth McNeil. Simon over at Savage Reads recently did a really cool kind of sit-down talk with her while they were throwing pottery on the wheel. She is a potter, and I don't know a whole lot about the actual story of this, but I am really intrigued by the cover. We have this little almost terrarium kind of thing with animals, and there's a girl or a woman in here and enclosed inside this dome kind of thing. And I've heard some really great things from people other than Simon as well. And kind of an oldie but goodie. I've heard a lot of people talk about this from the past. That is Lily and the Octopus by Stephen Rowley. Something about a dog. I imagine the dog is Lily or the octopus. Not sure. And by the same author, he was on my mind because the same author just came out with the book The Editor. Also found out about this from Russell at Ink and Paper blog. This has to do with Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis as an editor and her professional role rather than her socialite or first lady role. There's a summer book, what is it called? Summer Books Readathon, or Summer Reads Readathon. Yeah. And the group read for that is Summer of Salt. I talked about this in my June TBR video, so I won't go into great detail. Twins, one has magic, one doesn't have it yet. They have like an epic summer or something like that. So I'll be reading that later in June. And my book of the month choice for this month, for May, was How Not to Die Alone. And I think I would like to pick this up sooner than later. It feels like a summary book by Richard Roper. And Andrew's been feeling stuck. For years, he's worked a thankless public health job searching for the next of kin of those who die alone. Luckily, he goes home to a loving family every night. At least, that's what his coworkers believe. Then he meets Peggy. A misunderstanding has left Andrew trapped in his own white lie in his lonely apartment. When a new employee, Peggy, breezes into the office like a breath of fresh air, she makes Andrew feel truly alive for the first time in decades. Could there be more to life than this? But telling Peggy the truth could mean losing everything. For 20 years, Andrew has worked to keep his heart safe, forgetting one important thing, how to live. Maybe it's time for him to start. So that sounds interesting. I don't know a whole lot about this next one. This is Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. Just heard a lot of good things about it. It was a Book of the Month choice in April, so I picked that up. Kendra Winchester, I believe, really liked it, and I saw some other people as well with positive reviews for that. I hope to get to it for Asian Readathon, and it just didn't work out. And then finally, I have On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. I have not read The Hate U Give, but this was available from Book of the Month Club when it came out, and so I went ahead and picked that up. And I just haven't felt compelled to read it yet, but I'm glad that I have it. So those are the many books that I've picked up this spring. Oh, hi dog. Let me know if you are interested in any of these books, or have you read any of these books? Is there one in particular that I should prioritize based on your experience with this book? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you around the tubes.